everyone, and welcome back to the Wisdom by Harry YouTube channel. My name is Harry.
And I'm Mary. We're so excited to have you here today for another fascinating episode.
Today we're going to be looking at love and relationships.
Ooh, okay.
We got this really interesting conversation between a relationship expert and a podcaster.
Interesting.
And they're talking about all the things that we think about when it comes to love, like attraction, intentions, and that big question, is this going to last?
Right.
And they go deep,
Okay.
like really deep into what men and women are looking for when they first meet someone.
That's really interesting. I think a lot of people wonder about that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to be blunt about it.
Okay.
The expert in particular makes some pretty bold claims about how differently men and women approach those first stages of dating.
Really?
Yeah, it's almost like they're reading from completely different scripts.
I can see that.
So what are some of the things that stood out to you about the expert's perspective on those initial encounters?
Well, I thought it was really interesting how the expert uses this phrase, consumable body versus best friend.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it highlights how men might initially be drawn to physical attraction, like you were saying.
Right.
Like just the possibility of a physical relationship, whereas women, on the other hand, are often seeking a deeper connection right from the start.
Interesting.
Someone they can confide in and build a bond with.
Okay.
So you can kind of see how those two perspectives could clash.
Talk about a recipe for misunderstanding.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that the conversation really digs into.
Okay.
Is how these initial differences, if they're not addressed, can create a disconnect in the relationship.
Right.
And lead to frustration and even heartbreak later on.
It's like starting a journey on two separate paths.
Exactly. And then it gets even more interesting because the expert argues that priorities can shift dramatically as the relationship progresses.
Okay.
Especially when marriage becomes a possibility.
Oh, interesting.
And this is where it gets a little bit controversial.
Okay.
The expert claims that women can actually become more selfish at this stage.
Right. Wow. That's a bold statement.
It is, but I think it's important to understand what they mean by that.
Okay, yeah, unpack that a little.
They're suggesting that both men and women ultimately aim for the best package when considering a lifelong commitment.
I see.
It's not just about love anymore. It's about finding a partner who ticks a whole range of boxes.
Yeah, it's like suddenly there's this whole new set of criteria that comes into play.
Exactly. And the expert even uses this example of a guy who might have a hot girlfriend, but doesn't see her as wife material.
That's a really interesting example.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what these unspoken expectations really are for both men and women.
Right. Are these societal pressures?
Yeah.
Personal insecurities?
Right.
It makes you think.
It really does. And it also underscores how crucial it is to be open and honest about your desires and expectations right from the start.
Yes, absolutely. No one wants to waste time or end up heartbroken because they weren't on the same page from the beginning.
Exactly. The expert talks about the importance of setting principles early on to avoid hurting others and to make sure that your decisions are aligned with your values.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that relationships aren't just about finding the most attractive or successful person.
Right.
It's about finding someone who complements you.
Exactly.
And shares your vision for the future.
And someone who you can really connect with on a deep level.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the whole trial and error approach to dating.
Right.
The expert is adamantly against it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they really emphasize the potential for hurt when you're not genuinely invested in the other person.
I can see their point.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the moment.
Right.
And forget that everyone involved has feelings and vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. And that's where the conversation takes a really powerful turn.
Okay.
It shifts to focus on the devastating effects of heartbreak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they don't hold back. They use some really vivid language to describe it.
Interesting.
Almost like they're describing a physical injury. The expert even goes so far as to compare heartbreak to the pain of a heart attack.
Seriously.
Yeah, emphasizing just how deeply it can affect every aspect of someone's life.
So it's not just a metaphor?
Not at all. They give specific examples of how heartbreak can manifest physically, like difficulty sleeping,
Right.
avoiding certain places or activities that remind you of the person, even feeling physically ill.
It's like your body is mirroring the pain of your broken heart.
Exactly. And what's often overlooked is the impact that heartbreak can have on your sense of self.
Oh, absolutely.
The expert makes the point that it can really make you question your worth
Right.
and leave you feeling deeply wounded and even betrayed.
It's like your whole world shifts.
Yeah.
And everything feels a little less vibrant for a while.
Exactly. And they emphasize that this pain can linger for years,
Oh, why?
influencing future relationships and making it harder to open yourself up again.
So it's not something to be taken lightly.
Definitely not. But amidst all this talk about heartache, the conversation does offer a glimmer of hope.
Okay, good.
The expert suggests that true love often leads to forgiveness, even when the other person doesn't deserve it.
That's a powerful idea.
It is. It's about recognizing the power of compassion
Right?
and understanding that sometimes letting go is the best way to heal.
So forgiveness is more about freeing yourself
Exactly.
than it is about the other person.
It's a difficult path for sure, but it's a crucial step toward personal growth and emotional well-being.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And now we get to the concept of karma.
Oh, karma.
That idea that what goes around comes around.
Right.
The expert dives into this with such conviction.
Really?
Yeah, they explain why it exists and how it operates in relationships.
I'm curious to hear their take on that.
Well, they argue that it's not about punishment.
Okay.
It's about ensuring that justice prevails,
Interesting.
even when someone seems to get away with hurting others.
That's a really interesting perspective.
I thought so too. They have this great analogy.
What is it?
They describe karma as a meticulous record keeper, observing our actions and delivering consequences at the right time,
Oh.
often in unexpected ways.
It's like this cosmic balancing act.
Exactly. It makes you think twice about your actions,
It really does.
knowing that even if you don't face immediate consequences,
Yeah.
your choices will ultimately catch up with you.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The expert uses this powerful analogy. They compare karma to a debt that accrues interest over time.
Okay.
So even if it seems like someone's gotten away with something in the present,
Right.
those debts will eventually come due. And the impact might be even greater because of how long it took.
Wow. That's both unsettling and reassuring at the same time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's
Well-
like knowing that ultimately there's a sense of fairness in the universe,
Right.
even if it doesn't always feel that way in the moment.
And it's not about seeking revenge
No,
or wishing harm on others.
not at all.
It's more about understanding a natural principle,
Right,
like the law of gravity.
exactly.
It applies to everyone equally, regardless of their intentions.
I like that.
This whole conversation is making me think a lot about my own actions
Yeah, me too.
and the impact they have on others,
It's definitely a good reminder to be more mindful of how we treat people.
especially in relationships.
Absolutely. The expert talks about how true growth and lasting happiness in relationships come from aligning our actions with our values, recognizing that we have a choice in how we treat others and that those choices have consequences.
It's like we're constantly building our own karma bank.
Oh, I like that.
Every decision, every interaction either adds to our balance of positive energy or depletes it.
That's a great way to think about it. And it's not just about avoiding negative consequences. It's also about cultivating a mindset of kindness, compassion, and integrity,
Yeah.
which ultimately leads to a more fulfilling life.
It's almost like being kind to others is a form of self-care.
I think so too. When you act with integrity,
Yeah.
you create a positive ripple effect that benefits everyone, including yourself.
Absolutely. Because when you genuinely care for others, you're contributing to something bigger than yourself
Right.
and fostering meaningful connections
Exactly.
that bring true happiness and fulfillment.
So, shifting gears a bit, one of the things that really stood out to me in this conversation
Okay.
was the expert's perspective on what makes a truly strong relationship.
Interesting. What did they say?
Well, they didn't really focus on typical romantic ideals.
Right.
Instead, they emphasized having a partner who consistently shows up for you,
Hmm.
no matter what challenges life throws your way.
Okay.
Someone who's there for the tough times, not just the celebration.
That's really important.
It is. They talked about how it's easy to find people who will party with you and celebrate your successes,
Oh, yeah.
but it's those rare individuals who stick by you through thick and thin,
Yeah.
offering support and understanding when you need it most.
Those are the ones who really matter.
Exactly. It's like having that one person you can always count on no matter what.
Right. Like a constant source of strength and solace.
Yeah, and it makes all other relationships pale in comparison.
They really drove that point home, didn't they?
They did. They used this powerful image of imagine yourself facing a difficult situation.
Right.
you're feeling alone and overwhelmed,
Yeah.
there's just one person you want to call.
Right.
The one person who will listen without judgment and offer genuine comfort and support.
That's the kind of bond everyone should strive for.
Exactly. And it's not just about practical help either.
Right.
It's about that deep sense of connection.
Right.
Knowing that someone truly sees you,
Yeah.
understands your vulnerabilities, and loves you unconditionally.
It's like having someone who believes in you even when you doubt yourself.
Exactly.
Someone who celebrates your strengths
Right.
and accepts your flaws
A true partner.
in every sense of the word.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The expert suggests that finding this kind of deep connection, it's more about quality than quantity.
That makes sense.
It's not about having tons of friends or always needing validation from others. It's about really nurturing those deep and authentic relationships.
Yeah,
The ones where you can just be yourself, you know?
totally. Like that saying, it's not about the number of friends you have, but the quality of the ones you keep.
Exactly. And as we get older, I think we start to realize
Yeah.
that it's those few special people,
Right.
the ones we can truly confide in and laugh with and cry with, those are the ones that really enrich our lives.
Absolutely. And how do we find those people?
Well, the expert says it takes both intuition and effort.
Okay.
It's about paying attention to the people who are consistently there for you
Yeah.
and who genuinely care about you.
Not out of obligation, but because they want to be.
Exactly.
What about gut feeling?
Oh, yeah. Intuition plays a big role, too.
Okay.
It's that inner voice that tells you when someone truly has your best interests at heart,
Yeah.
even if they're challenging you or offering a different perspective.
You know, it's funny because you brought up effort,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's a really important point. Because nurturing these relationships takes work from both sides.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street, a
Right.
dance of mutual support and care.
And it's not just about receiving support.
No.
It's about giving it freely as well.
Exactly. Being present, listening attentively,
Yeah.
offering encouragement and understanding.
I mean, the kind of friend you'd want to have.
Exactly. And one thing the expert pointed out that I found really interesting was that these true well-wishers
Yeah.
are often the ones who are willing to sacrifice their own comfort or desires for our well-being.
That's a really good point.
They're the ones who put our needs before their own,
Yeah.
not out of a sense of duty, but out of genuine love and care.
It's those selfless acts that really show the depth of their love.
Right. And it doesn't have to be something big and dramatic.
Right.
It can be those small everyday things.
Right.
Like maybe they go out of their way to help you with something even when it's inconvenient for them.
Yeah.
Or they just listen patiently when you need to vent.
Those little things can mean so much.
They really can. And the expert suggests that this willingness to sacrifice
Okay.
is actually the truest measure of love.
More than grand gestures or gifts.
Exactly. It's about those small sacrifices that we make for each other every day.
Because we truly care about the other person's happiness.
Precisely. And true love isn't always easy or convenient.
Right.
It often requires compromise, understanding, and a willingness to go the extra mile, even when it's tough.
It's about putting in the work,
Yeah,
making compromises,
Yeah.
and prioritizing the other person's happiness.
exactly. And the expert makes this interesting point that true love is often revealed in the small, everyday moments,
Okay.
not the big, dramatic ones.
So those quiet acts of service, the willingness to listen,
Yeah.
the genuine desire to see the other person thrive.
Exactly. Those are the things that really speak volumes.
It's like a love language all its own.
It is. And the expert suggests that we can actually learn to recognize and appreciate these subtle expressions of love
How do we do that?
by being more mindful, paying attention to those small but meaningful gestures,
Yeah.
and expressing gratitude for the other person's willingness to go above and beyond.
So we need to train ourselves to look beyond the surface and see the love in the everyday moments.
Exactly. And the more we do that, the more open we become to experiencing deeper and more fulfilling relationships.
I love that.
Yeah.
And what's even more fascinating is that the more we focus on giving love in this way, the more we attract it into our own lives.
Like a ripple effect, you know?
It is. It starts with our own actions and spreads outwards,
Exactly. Touching the lives of everyone around us.
and ultimately contributing to a more loving and compassionate
the
world.
goal.
Absolutely. And this brings us to a really crucial point that the expert makes.
Okay.
The importance of recognizing the difference between genuine love and infatuation.
Oh, yeah, that can be tricky.
It can, especially in the early stages of a relationship.
Right. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement and the novelty.
Yeah, and mistake those intense feelings for something more lasting.
Exactly. So how can we tell the difference?
Well, the expert offers this really great analogy.
Okay, what is it?
They compare infatuation to a firework display.
Ooh.
Breathtaking and intense,
Right.
but ultimately fleeting.
Right.
Whereas true love is more like a cozy fireplace.
I like that.
It might not be as flashy,
No,
but it offers a warmth and comfort and stability that lasts.
that's a great way to put it. So it's about looking beyond the surface and paying attention to how the other person makes you feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not just in those exciting moments,
Right.
but in the everyday ordinary moments as well.
True love brings a sense of peace, security, and joy.
Even when things are tough.
Exactly. And it's about feeling seen, understood, and accepted for who you truly are.
Quirks and all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The expert actually poses this really powerful question.
Okay.
They say, if someone truly loves you, what are they willing to sacrifice for you?
Wow. That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it?
It does. It makes us think about the people in our lives who we consider to truly love us
Right.
and what they've done for us.
Those sacrifices, big or small.
Exactly. It's not always about grand gestures.
Yeah.
It's about those everyday acts of kindness, compassion, and understanding.
The things that show the depth of their love.
Exactly. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Well, this has been a really thought-provoking conversation,
It has.
and it's given us a lot to think about.
Definitely. As you navigate your own relationships,
Yeah.
remember what we've talked about today,
The importance of honesty,
right?
the power of forgiveness,
Uh-huh.
the difference between infatuation and true love,
Yeah.
and the impact of our actions. But most importantly, remember that true love does exist.
Does.
It might not always be easy to find or maintain,
Right.
but it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely. And as you embark on that journey,
Yeah.
keep that question in mind. If someone truly loves you, what are they willing to sacrifice for you?
That's a good one. It'll help you recognize the people who genuinely cherish you and inspire you to become the best version of yourself.
Exactly, because the greatest love stories
Yeah.
are the ones built on mutual respect, understanding, and a willingness to sacrifice for each other's happiness.
That's beautiful. So go out there and create your own epic love story.
Yeah.
One that's authentic, fulfilling, and filled with deep, abiding love.
I love that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.